Today, I'm going to give you a quick start walkthrough on the Yolobox Extreme. This is a 4K switcher with both streaming and recording capabilities. So if you're looking for that all-in-one live streaming rig that's powerful, portable, and super simple, the Yolobox Extreme might be your new best friend. This isn't a paid sponsorship, but YoloLive did send me this Yolobox for free to review. So let's just dive right in. I'm doing a screen recording from the monitor output on the Yolobox Extreme so you can see exactly what I'm seeing. And when you first open it up, it's very simple. There's not a whole lot going on. It's not too overwhelming. You do have some buttons you can click through and you start to see what is going on, which the first thing that stands out is probably the audio, but you've also got recording settings. You have some really cool auto switch settings that we'll get into in a little bit, but you have these nice tabs right at the bottom so you can just toggle right through. The first one is for overlays, any kind of graphics, logos, bugs, stuff that you want to put on screen overlaid. That's where it goes. Really easy to load it in. All you need to do is pop in an SD card or a USB drive. There are more than enough inputs and outputs on this device to satisfy anyone. There's 8 HDMI inputs on this board. 5 of them are 4K, while the other 3 are 1080p. And we're gonna get into some of that nuance of the resolution and recording limitations because there are some you need to be aware of. But for example, I just have my main camera right here that you can see in the board, as well as a computer plugged in. I'm gonna go ahead and turn on one other camera so you can see how that loads in automatically. As the camera powers up and that HDMI feed gets sent in, here we have it right here, and I can just tap it, and now that is my main program feed. It's a simple switcher. You can just toggle back and forth between any of your inputs as simply as that, just tapping, and there you go, back again. Very, very simple. What's really nice about the Yolobox Extreme is that you're not seeing every single input if you don't want to. You're really only seeing the ones that are active and live as they come online, as you plug them in. So the interface is super minimal at first, and it kind of builds with you, with your experience and how you're using it. So I set this other camera up so you could see kind of a hands-on visual demonstration as well. So we already talked about overlays. Let's go to this next menu, which is audio. Super important part of any live stream is the video and the audio. Right now you can see HDMI 8. That's where my camera is. That's where I'm talking with this microphone, and that one is on. You can see HDMI 4 isn't on. If I turn that on, now you should be hearing what the computer is playing. And you'll hear me and the computer might be kind of loud. I haven't dialed in the levels exactly, but you get the idea. The computer audio can be turned on and off interchangeably. You also have monitoring features. So for example, if I get my headphones and let's say I want to listen to that, I can hear exactly what the computer's playing. We got this powerful drum beat going right here. If I don't want to hear that, but I want it recorded, I can turn off monitoring. Now I can't hear it, but you should still be able to hear it because it's recorded. I'm going to turn it off and turn that monitoring back on. I can't hear it as a monitor if the track itself is off. The monitoring only works if things are on. But what I do hear is myself, and it's kind of delayed because sometimes HDMI gives you that audio lag or delay just by a few frames. And it's kind of jarring to listen to yourself talk at a delay. So what's nice is I can record myself, but turn the monitoring off. So now I don't have myself playing in my ear. I'm not distracted by the delayed voice in my ear, but I can still hear things like the computer if that's playing music, you know, over there. So really, really nice, super simple, easy to operate. It's all touchscreen. That's kind of the main thing with the Yolobox Extreme. It's a big screen. That's what's nice about it. It is an all-in-one live streaming, recording switchboard. There's no extra computer to plug in. I do have a computer plugged in, but that's merely just to get the screen capture from the computer. I'm not using the computer to control any of this. There is an app. There's an iPhone app as well, but you don't need any of that. The beauty of the Yolobox is that it's all in one. Everything is here. It is the brains and the board all in one. So let's keep going through some settings. Next page, we have background music. Of course, if you're doing any stream or production, you might want to pipe in some royalty-free, copyright-free music that you can play if you want. You've also got a scoreboard if you're running any kind of sports, athletics, where you're keeping track of score. You have that functionality right in the board. We've also got the replay abilities. I'm not going to dive into any of these too specifically. I just want to kind of give you an overview of what's possible. And then from there, you can dive in a little bit deeper. I'll have some more videos coming out. But replay is a super cool thing, especially for any of those sporting events. Now we're on the recording page, which this is kind of the main key thing. So that's why I want to spend a little bit of time here. Right now, you can see that I'm recording program, HDMI 4, HDMI 8, and I don't have HDMI 5 recording because that's the one I turned on, this camera here that you're looking at. But we can set a few options. So under our recording settings, I can't change them now because I'm actually recording. What you're seeing is from the Yolobox Extreme, but you have a lot of options. You can change the resolution, you can change the frame rate, you can change the bit rate, the encoding H.264 or H.265, and whether it's constant bit rate, variable bit rate, and there's one other option as well. Now, here's where I want to mention some of these limitations because this is a 4K board, but you can't record all of the inputs at 4K all the time. So if you're familiar with ISO track recording, that's basically getting a backup version of your main switch. So the main switch is me switching between these inputs like you see here, right? Switching normal. That's how a switchboard usually operates. ISO recording is individual recordings of each of those camera feeds. So if you can imagine, if you had 8 HDMI inputs plugged in, remember 5 of them are 4K, 3 of them are 1080p, you could record theoretically all of those ISO tracked, but unfortunately that's just a little bit too power hungry for the board and probably for your memory card and really for everything. That's a lot of data to process in a live environment. So really this board I think is meant best as a 4K streaming and recording board. If you're expecting ISO tracks of 4K for all your inputs, it's not capable of that. That's not going to happen. However, you can reduce that resolution down to 1080p and add more cameras in. You can go even lower to 720p and add more cameras in. Let's not forget, this board is capable of far more than just the 8 HDMI inputs that are on the back. You even have options like NDI, and I want to show you this because this is really, really cool. Super simple. If you add a video source and you click on the NDI button, it's going to start looking for an NDI source. You might wonder, what is NDI? Well, NDI is really cool wireless technology. From my phone, I have an NDI app. A lot of phones have these nowadays, and you can start streaming via your NDI camera app on your phone, and the board will pick it up. So now I have a phone. I don't know. I hope you can see how cool this is. Wirelessly, just over Wi-Fi. Camera app. It's a special app you have to download. It's an NDI camera. There's a few different apps out there that you can get. And you can beam video signal right from your phone wirelessly, as long as you're on the same network, right to the Yolobox Extreme. I believe there's actually 6 NDI inputs on here, and you can use it just like you would any other video source. So in addition to the 8 HDMI inputs, you also have NDI inputs as well. This could be an iPad, it could be an iPhone. It is really, really powerful technology. And I'm just going to set this here so you can kind of keep an eye on it and get the general idea. But basically, you can add so many more video sources beyond the physical inputs on the device. And that's kind of what I want to show you, the potential that's there. But again, just remember, you will reach a limit in terms of what the board is capable of recording in those ISO tracks. Every ISO track adds a little bit more computational power, a little bit more processing. So you do reach a limit. Thankfully, it does show you on the CPU limit up at the top. Right now, we're at 44% CPU. So the more ISO recordings you have, the more things you have going on, the more that CPU fills up. Remember, this is the computer and the switchboard, the inputs, all of it in one. That's pretty powerful technology. So you have to find that balance, what's going to work for your production. Do you need 4K? Then you're going to be reduced in how many inputs you can record. If you're fine with 1080, you can get more inputs recorded. I hope that's simple enough to understand. It is a balancing act. This board is very, very powerful, and all the options are unlocked by default. So there's really no limitation other than that CPU, and how you mix and match it is up to you. Continuing on, we have our encoding settings, which I already kind of showed you. And then we have what is one of the most powerful features on any switchboard. We have auto switching capabilities. Now, there is an auto switch by default. It's kind of a dummy auto switch. It'll just cycle through the cameras based on a timer. So I can show you that here in a moment. You can pick your video sources like HDMI, 5, NDI, all of them. And you can see simply there's some timers here along the side, 10-second timers, and it kind of sequentially will loop through them. And that's fine for an auto switch, basic, super simple, rudimentary, just on timers. What's more powerful and really cool is video follows audio. This is a whole playground of opportunity if you are looking to automate your podcast, even theoretically like a wedding, a sporting event, anything that would basically, you want to trigger a camera based on a speaker. Most probably it's a podcast, something like that. Speaker A is talking, you want to cut to their camera. You can do that with video follows audio, meaning as the audio moves, the video is going to move as well, meaning it's going to cut to the camera with that audio input. But it's even cooler than that because you can pick, so let's say I pick HDMI 8, and let's say I have the computer monitor as well, and let's say that NDI camera as well as my input sources. So here we have all these conditions. So let's say as HDMI 8, that's my main camera. When that's active with audio, I want to cut to HDMI 8. I want to cut to that camera. But let's say I also want to like play pause on the computer, and I can do HDMI 4, cut to HDMI 4. Same thing for that NDI camera, but maybe I don't want the NDI camera to cut to itself. Maybe when I hear NDI, I want to cut to HDMI 5, for example, and that's totally an option. You can trigger other camera actions based off of audio from other inputs. I hope that makes sense. It's a little bit complicated here. I don't want to overwhelm you. It's kind of a little bit of if then this, if then, yeah, IFTTT kind of sort of situation, where you have all these conditions and the actions will respond accordingly. So let's just change this back to cut to the main camera when it hears NDI. And let's just start this and see what happens. So basically, if I turn this on, now that I'm talking, it should switch to my camera, but I might not have made it sensitive enough. So let's turn that off and go back in here. And here's where we need to play around with some of our sensitivity settings. So by default, it's on 3. You can turn that up to kind of trigger the switches more frequently. We can also set a minimum switch duration, basically how long each camera is active before it's willing to go to the next one. That can be lower for faster cuts or a higher duration for slower cuts. And then we also need to look at this threshold for our decibels. This microphone might not be hitting the right level to trigger it. So let's turn that down a little bit, down to -40, let's say. And let's try these new settings and see if that works. Look at that right there. So I start talking, it hears me, it cuts right to me. And now if I stopped the computer, but if I play the computer, it should, oh, forgot one more thing. I have to turn, oh no, it did it. Okay, good, awesome. So I just need to turn that audio on so you can actually hear it. So if I stop that from playing, now it should cut back to me if all is working properly. I may need to play around with some of those sensitivity settings as well to trigger it a little faster, but you get the idea. Basically, if you have competing microphones, person A is talking, person B, person C, it can cut around a whole podcast room full of people. Back to computer monitors. Again, if I'm playing audio here, just automatically cut. I didn't have to do anything. I didn't have to flip the finger, didn't have to push a button. The moment I stop that audio and I keep talking, it's going to come back to me automatically. If you can kind of see the potential, see the power of this style of production, live switching, especially for a podcast, but there may be other situations where you want to trigger camera cuts based on audio, you can mix and match and design it however you like. Super, super powerful, incredible technology, and it's built right into the board. And that's what is so cool. It's all right here. There's no other computer. There's no other place you have to go to. There is an app that you can, wirelessly control this. But if you don't want to deal with anything else, it is all right here. It's very plug and play. It works. I showed you the setup basically from factory default. I reset everything just so it was clean and simple after I had been playing around with it. But a lot of those customizations and optimizations you're going to make for yourself. I wanted to show you what it's like just stock right out of the box. On this last page, we have these video source transitions. Now, what's kind of neat about these tools is, let's say you don't use half of them. Let's say you don't use background music or you don't use the scoreboard. You can just get rid of them and then you never have to see them again. And then they're just gone. They're not an option anymore. You can't even hit it by accident. If you want them back, you can just restore all your settings and get them all back to the default order. This board is incredibly intuitive, super simple. Usually whenever I'm looking for something, I find it within a few seconds. Just a little bit of thought, a little bit of energy. I wonder if I can do this. I sure can. You even have further settings in the gear menu. This is where you have some of the deeper dive settings that I'm not really going to go into now, but this is where you can change some of your monitoring outputs. So you have 2 HDMI outputs. Right now I'm mirroring, but I could change that to be my program output. I could use my other HDMI output for something else. Again, to mirror, to show program, to show a custom output. There's lots of capabilities here in this menu. And so if we just kind of step back a little bit and kind of appreciate what we have here, it is really impressive. A 4K switcher, which is kind of in this price point, kind of hard to find, especially with everything built right in. Again, it is the computer, it's the brains, it's the board, it's all of it, all in one. I forgot to mention, this thing has an internal battery, so you don't even need it plugged in. Like, let's say you're on a remote location or you lose power or something. There's an internal battery that's quite big. The capacity, I don't know what it is off the top of my head, but it'll last you a while. I think I heard that it can last up to 10 hours. Now, that may vary depending on your CPU usage. So, I can't say, but 10 hours, that's impressive. And it feels it. The board, it's like when I opened up the box for the first time, it was like this weird hybrid between an iPad and like a giant battery and a switchboard all combined in one. And it was really cool to start digging in and figuring out what this thing is capable of. And once I saw, some of these conditional things that are, constantly being updated with firmware, that's the other cool thing about this board being touchscreen, being Android based, is that the firmware is constantly changing, constantly evolving, improving. So if there's something missing or something's broken, they're always working on adding more to it, which I've been actually really impressed with the feedback that I've gotten from the team over at Yololive. When I saw the NDI option of this is my first experience with NDI, and I could not be more thrilled. Super simple, super intuitive. You just add the source, you hit go on the iPhone camera, and it just works. When it comes to technology, that is such a rare treat. I don't know about you, but whenever I have technology and I'm plugging it in, getting it set up, there's always that troubleshooting. There's always that difficulty, that learning curve, figuring it out. Why isn't this working? Got to get it set up. I've had very, very little of that with the Yolobox Extreme. It all kind of just works, and it works at some of the best specs you could ever imagine. This can even do 4K 60. That's crazy. I don't even have the need to do 4K 60, but it can do it if you need to. The only thing to really watch out for are those recording limitations. If you want to do a 4K 60 live stream, you absolutely can. If you want to record 4K 60 of your live switch, you absolutely can. If you want to record all of your cameras independently, in addition to that main switch, that's where it gets a little bit too intensive for the processor. You might have to step it down to 1080p or even 720p, depending on how many sources you have. But in that situation, I would probably recommend just recording in the cameras themselves rather than running all of that through the box, because that is a lot. So I would say for streaming, for recording, stick to that 4K switch, have maybe a couple ISO tracks recorded as a backup, and that's going to be a great option if you want that ultra resolution for your stream or your live production. If you want to do a lower resolution stream, 1080p, something like that, you get a little bit more backup and safety net there if you need to go and tweak anything later. One thing I haven't seen on this board that you'll see on some others is a basically edited version of those ISO tracks. And unfortunately, I don't think that's an option here. Maybe it could come in some future update, but it's not anything I've seen. But aside from that, there's very few limitations. The only limitations are going to be based on your specific production, your specific needs. How much resolution are you trying to pump through it? How many cameras are you trying to run? It can do pretty much anything you want to throw at it. And they call it extreme for a reason. It is extreme. So many inputs, so many outputs, even in addition to the wireless inputs, the NDI stuff, it is incredibly cool. And I'm really glad to have it in any kind of environment. I'm probably going to use it mostly in studio, but it is portable. You could take it anywhere and do all this stuff on the road, wherever you're at. Part of the fun of this board is the experimentation and the creativity that you can throw at it, how you can mix and match. I didn't even get into, and I should show you real quick. There's all these multi-view layouts. So let's say you wanted to do 4 different views, 1, 2, 3, 4, and we just go through these right here. Super simple. Let's give it a background. Let's hit done. And now in a few clicks, we have a 4-camera multi-view. Like that's not, what could be easier? It's so simple. And that's really it. It's that simple. Add more sources. You have all of your options. You can even bring in other live streams. You can bring in images and RTMP and RTSP, and you can pull video from an SD card. You can pull stuff in from a USB. You can do all sorts of preset default template multi-views, but you can even go ahead and make your own. It's really, really incredible. And what's even crazier is that I've been doing all of this while it's been recording. So you can see my CPU limit is up to 48%. We're halfway there. It does limit you at like the 80%. That's kind of when it gives you that warning, giving you that buffer saying, hey, be careful, know what you're doing. But to be able to do all of this, to do the NDI, the wireless, like that's probably one of the most impressive things to me, the NDI and the video follows audio. That's such a great feature. Here I am hitting buttons, switching back and forth between all the inputs manually, when the smarter, better way is to use video follows audio and have the board do it for you automatically. That is really cool.